All right, we're ready to get started today. As I indicated, we're here to learn about price to sell with your CMA, and it's Ignite Power Session 5. So, first of all, has anybody, they tell us to start off on page, where we are, on page 6. We're talking about our mission assignments, our action reveal. And on page 5, we're talking about our training expectations. So we're right in here at the beginning. But let's start with our action reveal. They're talking about there's 3 parts to the action reveal. You're supposed to review the mission assignments and get questions answered, answer questions about any videos that you watched, and provide your ahas from the mission. Did anybody look at the mission 5? Did you get a chance to look at mission 5 before we got here today?
Pieces of it.
Okay. Was there any ahas that you might have gotten out of that?
Yeah, I need to do more.
Well, see, that's a good aha, because it teaches you that there's a lot involved before each class, right? That you need to try to take a few minutes to look at. So, and I know you all are busy, because I heard every one of you say you got more than one thing going on in your life. Most of us do, even if this is a full-time job. So, but if you can, try to spend a few minutes before or the day before, look at those videos, because I think it'll make a difference. Like in this class, I show you over in Matrix how there is a help video there that can help you with setting up a full CMA if that's the way you want to do your CMA. So I'll show you where it is and let it play for you. And we may do that after Mr. Brandon is gone, because I want him to try to go through the little CMA tutorial, that little, what I want to call it, like a quick little jam session that I have for us to try to see if you understand just by looking at the big picture how to come up with the CMA. So we may put that to the very end and try to get the other things done first, okay? So he can be a part of that. And as we talk about on page 7, we've got the daily 10-4. You guys doing your 10-4s? You know that's real important. Okay. Say what?
It is important.
It is. Have you been able to get your contacts made daily?
I make as many as I can. I have 2 clients that are consuming my time right now. But
let me guess, they're buyers.
one of them is a buyer, one of them is a seller.
Oh, okay. The seller's consuming your time too. Okay. It tend to be, most of the time it seems to be buyers. Usually once you get the seller set up and you get them listings, get the listing out there, they're a little easier to
I'm doing the prep work to try to figure out what I have to do.
Gotcha. Yeah, that takes a little time. That sure does. Okay. Anybody else been able to do your 10-4s daily or your lead generation? Calling anybody?
Here and there.
Oh, look at you, Isaac, here and there. What did I tell everybody before Isaac came in? You want to do what they tell you to do to the best of your ability. But trust me, as you start converting over, it'll get easier. But start if nothing else, the people that you're knowing now, start putting them in as your contacts, getting their phone numbers, getting their email addresses, and getting ready to put them in your e-edge so that at least you can put them on your 33 touch campaign, because they're going to want you to have probably about 200 contacts when you start going through the PC program. So start working on those now, even if I'm not going to tell you that you're not, even if you're not making the phone calls, but I'm saying in addition to making your phone calls, be collecting names now, because even if they don't need to buy anything right now, guess what? They will at some point, hopefully, or they'll be talking to somebody who does. And that's referral is the best. That's our word. That's how we get our name out there. That's word of mouth. It's how we really sell ourselves lots of times. So don't be afraid now. And I think somebody told me a long time ago, think about the alphabet. When you start trying to figure out your contacts, start with A. Do you know anybody who does, acupuncture? Whatever. Just think of businesses that begin with A and start seeing if you know anybody. Do you know B? Do you have a barber? Do you have a beautician? Whatever you want to think of, people. And start thinking of them and getting their names and number and information and letting them be your contacts, getting them in the edge. So that's a good way to jog your memory, because I guarantee you know a whole lot more people than you think you do. But you don't think about them as a contact. They're just people in your lives. A mechanic. I got 2 that I'll bet the horses on to take care of my car all the time. So do I have their information? Oh, yes, I do. So, just go down the alphabet and think of people in your life daily and start jotting them down and getting more contact information if you don't have it, so you can put them in your 33 touch. And that's one way that you can that's lead generating too. So think about that. And then let's see here. We're going to go over to we could do lead generating for business. That's where they want us to take a few minutes and make some phone calls. But I know we got a little slow start. And they tell us when we take our phone calls that the next thing you should do is to write those handwritten notes. So you want to make sure you contact, because it was kind of neat. I had a closing the other day, and I had the listing, and the buyer's agent sent me a thank you card saying how nice the experience was. So that was nice to get, and I send them out too. So those are things that we do, even though as we do transitions, because guess what? Maybe that's somebody who might at some point think about coming to work here at Keller Williams, and what is that? That's my profit share. So and that's one thing here that Keller Williams has that a lot of companies don't have either, is profit share, giving you an opportunity to make money. That'll be residual income. Hey, in your retirement there, Jalea. Already thinking about that retirement, and that's not a bad thing to be thinking about, my dear. So if we go on to page 10, we talk about getting your head in the game. This is where we get started talking about trying to figure out these things. These slides don't never work with my mindset. Here we go. Yeah, we were talking about the 10 contacts to your database, speak with 10 people, write 10 notes. Hey, anybody preview houses? I didn't think to ask you guys that. You've been doing that, Brenda? Okay. How do you like that? What do you think when you're doing that? Are you reviewing like investment properties, or are you doing ones that are just ready to go?
For sales, because I have a couple buyer clients, and so it's nice. It's kind of nice when you go without them.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Especially one of my clients, they have a small child that typically has to come along, and it's nice to kind of go and you already know, because a lot of times you're just trying to stay a step ahead of them to kind of point things out for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that ability to see it, without any distractions, to really dig in.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, kind of relating back to the CMAs, it's nice because then you can see, why did that agent think this house should be priced this? What are they seeing that helps justify or warrant this price?
Or did they just price it where the seller wanted them to price it?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we do that. Sometimes agents do that. But yeah, it gives you kind of perspective. And then when you go compare others that are in that price range and see how they stack up and see if it's really priced right. That kind of helps you with that. So yeah. Anybody else doing previews? Try to, especially when you're new in the business, because it gives you a perspective of what's on the market, especially if you have a target area. If you want to work out of Kernersville, I'm just saying per se, try to go see some homes that are out there. Hey, you'll probably pass one. You see a for sale sign in the yard if it's during the day or something. I've done that. You'd be going by one and say, I'd like to see inside. Just call up now. It's showing time. You get on your phone and go right in there and just take a quick walk around and see if you think it's kind of priced right, or if it's going to sell pretty quickly, especially those that's been on the market a while. They can be interested to see how they price it, like Brandon was saying, or if they just put a price on it.
That's why, because, real fast, last week, on Thursday, I was up in Asheville showing houses too. And it's crazy that just the geographical area, how
it changes.
Things. Yeah, because some houses are looked up there worth, low 100,000s, but here you're like, probably something 50, 60, but it's because of where it's at.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. So see, that gives you some perspective on that, right? Okay, great. All right, on page 10, we're talking about helping sellers, getting your head in the game. This is why I tell you guys, this is a head game. This is a mindset. This is how you feel about the CMA process as a whole, and it kind of helps you relate it to the clients that you're going to be working with, So you're helping sellers determine the correct price for their property, and that's part of the value you bring to them. It says pricing can be easy with the properly prepared comparative market analysis, or CMA, as we'll probably call it from here on out. Presenting your CMA and discussing pricing with the seller are the two major components of the listing appointment. And you've already learned the dominant role your mindset plays in success in real estate. You guys have already figured out that it's pretty important. You got to be upbeat. You got to know that you can do this, because if you think you're going to fail, what are you going to do?
I'm going to fail.
Thank you. We know we got the power of life and death in our tongue, right, people? Right. So, you speak those things as though they were, and they will come into fruition. That's kind of my mindset in life, because half the time I don't see half of what I believe. So it kind of helps me get over that hump, in my mind. So, and the truth about this matter is that pricing has a large mindset component for both you and your seller. So, and pricing is a process. We've been kind of talking about that. You're learning to do it well also requires you to know pricing strategies based on the principles that drive markets. It also requires knowing pricing tactics, building and presenting a comparative market analysis, and the scripts that go with it. So those are the kinds of things we're going to do in this class. So see, you didn't see a whole bunch of going out there finding subjects and comps and all that stuff. This is going to be more of a mindset type of class about the CMA. And I do know you came in, young lady, and we'll get to you when we get to break, okay? You're not gonna slip by. So so you will use your knowledge and expertise in pricing and presentation to win the seller's agreement on the list price. And this is a price that will get their home sold. On page 11, we're talking about making it happen and pricing. And pricing is one of the absolutely essential real estate success skills. To become a pricing master, you must understand three things. You got to know how markets work. You got to know local market conditions, and you got to understand pricing criteria. And that's what this class pretty much is going to be about. And how markets work. We all know these things. We talk about market dynamics. Markets operate on the law of supply and demand. When supply is high and demand is low or down, prices fall. When supply is low and demand is up, prices increase. I bet everybody can tell me that they've experienced that in life just in general, right? I know you can back there with the auctioning of cars and and then even market stuff, so everybody, and I'm sorry if everybody else got their phone, forgot to vibrate it. This is a good time to do it. Mine was trying to start ringing on me here. But we've all been through that, and if you had to guess now, I know a lot of you haven't been doing this a while, but you've been seeing what's going on with pricing of homes and whatnot. What kind of market do you think we're in now? Good for you. Everybody said at the same time. I didn't even need to, pretty much, because we don't have inventory. So that pretty much dictates it. I mean, I know people that are doing a lot of their marketing based on the fact that they're doing prospect calling, the circle prospecting, and they're calling folks around homes that have recently sold and saying, hey, anybody else is wanting to list their property? We got folks out here looking in this area, but there's not homes out there. And they are actually getting quite a few listings that way just from circle prospecting because of the fact we don't have the inventory. So we're not lying. Yeah. And they probably might have been thinking about it, obviously, but nobody had said anything to them about selling their home. And I know an agent here that's gotten 3 or 4 just by calling in places where she's actually sold a home, doing that circle prospecting and finding other folks who were thinking about it but hadn't been approached by the right person or hadn't made that move to call a real estate agent. And she's gotten 3 or 4 listings that way. So that's another way to think about it. But yeah, we would say that we are now in primarily what we consider a seller's market. I don't know that it is dog eat dog world yet, because I do know some sellers that are still giving seller concessions, so closing costs, they're helping buyers with closing costs. But I do see homes selling pretty close to what the list price was. If the list price was correct, and homes that haven't been on the market long, I had one myself that sold in 7 days. I've had one that sold in a day. I put it on the market that morning. I had the contract that afternoon. So see, when inventory is low and you got a good property, it goes. So, and that's one way to tell that. And the determination of value is established based on an agreement between a willing seller and a willing buyer. The tug of war is always between what the seller wants and what the buyer is willing to pay. So even if that seller thinks there's gold under their heels, if there's not a buyer that's wanting to come and pay for that gold, it doesn't work. And sometimes that can be the hardest thing to relay to your sellers. Look, everybody's saying, right now. Do you really? Okay. So you understand when I say that they think they know exactly what their home is supposed to sell for, don't they? Can you tell me, or have you been able to show them or give them an idea that they may not be quite right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Ask me how that went.
I was going to ask you, how did you do that? What was
good? They're divorcing, so.
Oh, that's a totally
one
different.
Party wants to sell tomorrow, and the other party's like, "Screw you, lady. We're gonna sell when I want to sell." So I'm in the middle of that.
That's because
that. Priced, I'm looking forward to this class to see how well I've priced it.
Okay.
I think I've done well.
Okay. And
everybody who sees it says it's priced too high. So I'm anxious to see.
How many showings have you had?
Probably 10.
How long have you been on the market?
14 days.
Guess what? You're priced too high.
I know. But
and you and guess what? But guess what? I'm going to give you information to take back.
Good.
Because we're going to, in a few pages away, you're going to see exactly where this book tells us exactly what I just asked him. Day 15, that's my turnaround period. If the home that I have listed, and because, sometimes you give people a little leeway. You've told them kind of what you think the range is. Well, can we start here? If they're not too far away from where you're thinking that you want to be anyway, I may say sure. But in 15 days, if we have not had anybody look at it, or we have had plenty of people look at it and we have not had an offer, the market is telling us we're not priced right. And your first 4 weeks are your best weeks to sell your home. So I'm not going to let day 30 come and this house not be, because then people start looking at days on market, then they start lowballing you. Especially when you pretty much have it priced right. Day 15, day 16, guess what? My price is going down if I do not have an offer. And I know that it's really not because of anything that I can change. There's one thing if it's, the house is just sitting in a bad location. There's the graveyard behind it or something, you know what I mean? Then those are factors that you really can't fix. It may not matter how low you go. So sometimes you got to say to yourself, okay, if I've got it priced right, we just have to kind of wait this thing out and find the right person. But especially in a market that's moving as fast as this and as many people as you've had look at it, you should have an offer. But that's okay. We're gonna move on.
I'm hanging on the edge of my seat.
Don't do that to me. Don't do that to me,
I
Jeff.
sent them an email and told them I was in a pricing class and I was coming to their house when I was done.
Good for you. Good for you. Yeah, you figured. Yeah.
The pressure's on you.
Oh, thank you. I kind of set myself up for that one, didn't I? Okay. On page 12, we talk about the local market conditions. And to price accurately and price to sell, you must constantly study the conditions in your local market. That's what I told y'all. That's what the previewing helps you to do. Know what's going on in your area. Although, unfortunately, sometimes you might preview it today and it might be sold this afternoon. But you still can say you saw inside of some homes versus having to look at some of the pictures to try to determine what the house looked like once it's sold. Because I tell you what, I've seen some pictures and I didn't know what house they took pictures of. Because when I went inside, those pictures didn't match up with the house that I saw. They only took the good things. I'm an agent who takes the good, bad, and the ugly. Because guess what? If you want to come see my home, you'll come see it with whatever it has versus me trying to lure you out with all the good things. And then you see that one bad thing and turn around and walk out the door. Yep. So you defeat yourself. Why not be honest about the whole process? So that does happen often. You'll go in the house and say, wait a minute. They took a picture of that one wall and that one had 3 holes in it. Or that wall was missing. So take pictures of everything, you guys. I'll tell you, it just benefits you better. Because what are you going to hide? You can't hide it when they walk in the door and see it anyway. So it is what it is. If your seller's not willing to fix those things, I'm going to show you everything that this house has. You got 30 some odd pictures that you can take these days. Don't just show the good wall when the other ones, when the whole back wall is missing. Because it should be priced accordingly anyway. And you never know, there's that person who likes that kind of a fixer-upper and wants to feel like they've gotten a really good deal. So show it all. So anyway, we talk about the basic factors to watch. The inventory, how much is for sale, and is the inventory rising or falling? How many days on market? How long is it taking property to sell? The price per square foot. That's a good comparative indicator of prices when a group of properties has common qualities and features. That way you can kind of say, okay, if all these houses, like you've been out there looking, Brandon, you're looking at houses that's 2,000 square feet, guess what? They should all probably be pretty much priced at the same place. If they have all the same features in the same neighborhood, you know what I mean? Likes to like, comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges. But if you're comparing an apple to a banana, it's not going to look the same. So it should not be priced the same either. And I'm not telling you which one is better than the other, but that's just in general. You should know that. And changes in the local landscape. You need to monitor changes in major employers, shopping, schools, and other things, services in the area, because that kind of determines if people are going to be coming that way. Walkertown has a prime example. They just put recently in an apartment complex, I think, of 300 so apartments. And I'm determined to tap into those because eventually those people are going to want a house, especially the rent they're paying. These people are paying over $1,000. I mean, I can get them in a house cheaper than that.
Right.
It might just be an issue of credit. You know what I mean? But they could be buying a home cheaper than that.
Yeah.
So you think about things that are happening. So obviously, though, the inventory or the people in Walkertown is improving. If they can put an apartment complex in a little town one time ago that actually you could walk through. I think is why they named it that way. And it probably only had one stoplight that I can recall. And now we got 5 or 6, So think about it. You watch what's going on in your neighborhood. And I can tell you now, I have no good inventory out there. So, and I'm almost as, knowledgeable about Kernersville because I work out of Kernersville. And usually if people want to be in Walkertown, they're either looking at Kernersville too, or maybe this side of Greensboro. So you start getting familiar with the areas that you're working in and try to see what's going on. Like when Caterpillar came to town, when Dell came this way and stuff. So you kind of keep abreast of the market, and that kind of tells you, okay, we got a lot of folks out here buying, but we probably got no inventory. Or after they leave, you got inventory, and nobody to buy. So just keep keep a look out on the local news and things that's going on in your area that you plan on working in. And your pricing criteria. We know that getting the facts about pricing means evaluating a given property against other comparable properties. And this means like comparing your client's 20-year-old 3-bedroom, 2-bath property and a neighborhood of similarly built homes and homes that sold recently that match or come very close to matching it. The factors that you want to be looking at are location. That's one thing we can't change. They say location, location, location. We want to look at the size of the home, the amenities, and the condition. So those are going to be 4 things that we're looking at for pricing criteria. Then we talked about the local market conditions. And on page 13, it starts asking you your turn. What do you think about what are what are current local market statistics in your target area? Do you know like average days on market? Anybody been researching things like that for anywhere that they're working? And you can do that in MLS.
Well, I just wrote an offer on the home, and that's my first offer here with Kev Williams.
Okay.
I asked Robert Wiley for advice.
Yeah.
And the first thing he said is, how many days is it on the market?
Yeah. And did he tell you why he asked you that question?
Yeah, because he asked me what do you want to offer?
Mm-hmm.
And he says, that will give you some leverage.
Mm-hmm. It definitely will. Like when I'm working with my investors, are always looking for properties that have been sitting on the market a while. Mm-hmm. They don't want something that just came on 2 days ago, unless it's truly price low, because that is just what it is. But most of the time, a lot of these homes that could possibly be flipped, they've started them out higher, but they might need a whole lot of work. But we're not, we're talking after we get past day 130, 200 or something, then we're starting to say, guess what? We can kind of come in lowball them some. That's why I'm telling you guys that your days on market are important, because the same thing is going to happen to you with the listing once you start getting past day 30. Go ahead. Yeah.
I found it crazy. Yesterday, I was researching days on market. I was going with my team leader back and forth. She was doing CMA and saying, what do you think? And so we do exercise in the evening. She'll call me or text me and say, hey, check out this house. I want to buy it. Blah blah blah.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah,
that's
do
good.
Like a little, back and forth. And there was a house that just ironically she happened upon, and days on market was like 161 days.
Mm-hmm.
But when I went into another, and I can't remember exactly, maybe it was the tax analysis or something.
Yeah, the realist tax maybe?
Yes,
mm-hmm.
It had actually been on the market for over a year. But interesting enough, it said days on market was this. Well, it never changed the realtor's hand.
Mm-hmm.
But
they
this,
withdrew it.
Specific person or company, firm, or they agree to purchase the house if they don't sell it.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
So, it was on there for well over a year.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't sell it in 15 of October, and then the firm bought it in January of 16. The prices were back and forth. It was all over the place. It started at 564, and now it's listed for 510, 161 days still. So the firm is it was very interesting. She was like, wow, I didn't know that we were going to get in this situation.
Mm-hmm. And the firm has withdrawn it from the market, haven't they, at some points,
yes,
probably? And guess what? That's how your days on market counts start over.
Yeah.
But I think MLS, the most boards now say that if you take it off the market to withdraw it, now it has to be off for so much time. I don't know if it's 2 weeks or something.
They were just taking it off, and then they would price it higher, and then the next thing you know, and I'm sure it has a lot to do with what's going on in the trend.
Mm-hmm. Because what would you say if now what did she told us something, and what she was saying, and I don't know if anybody picked it up. How much this house is in the 500 range. So what is she telling us about houses in the 500 range?
That's what mine is.
Just a few.
There's few and far between. Now that you added that little tidbit, you may have a problem. I mean, and I don't mean it in a bad way, because what you're going to have to do now is you're going to have to go out there and pull the days on market for homes that have sold in your price range and be able to say, look, we're not going to sell it. Because, or, give them a reasonable expectation. You may still be too high, but it may also have unfortunately, now that you've told me what price range you're in, and she just told you what's going on in the market with 500.
I'll tell you, and in this neighborhood, very prominent area in Winston, and it was built in 07.
Mm-hmm.
So the comps were selling for $350 because there was new construction.
Ooh.
Right on the other side, they were selling, for the higher end, 6s and 7s. So they were trying to get this house, a beautiful home.
Yeah. I don't doubt it at all.
It was perfect, but the comps wasn't. I mean, it was a very interesting, way of going about it. But
so what she's proven to us that, and I already knew that when she said 500, I thought those don't sell fast.
Was going, they were going for $650.
Did you happen to look at how the days on market for the new construction was going? You probably didn't even think to compare that quick.
Wow. There was new construction. They were just pictures, of course, and then there was 2 maybe under contract, because it was in that neighborhood. And
so they like the neighborhood, the people do.
They were going for $155 per square foot. And this house, I went back and forth with April, and I was like, I would suggest that you offer it like $135 a square foot, just because of what has happened.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of sad, though, for that homeowner who knows that they have, and see, there's a situation where you have a really nice home, in which in actuality you do. But when you're bumped up against homes that are built brand new, if somebody's got that kind of money, see where they're putting it at? They're putting it in the brand new home, even though they could get a really good sale or really good deal by purchasing that.
The newer one a little bit more because it's
they just caught in the bubble. I mean, they just bought it when real estate was too high.
Well, it could be that, but I got a feeling it's priced right. I mean, the home is in that, it's in the neighborhood.
Right. It was actually underpriced. The tax value was like $569 or something.
So they're priced right, but they got people whose mindset is, guess what? I got this money, but I can spend $100,000 and get me a brand new one versus buying one in 07.
Right.
And you can't beat that with a stick. I mean, that's just a mindset. That's a mindset. You can't fight that almost, because obviously somebody who's paid that kind of money, even in 07, what do they owe on that thing still? They probably still owe quite a bit.
Right, and I think that's an interesting thing when you have a client that wants in construction. Is it the first phase of the development? Because first phase, and I've talked to my mentor, investor, personal friend of mine in the car business. He had just closed yesterday, a home at Lake Norman for $750, and it's the first phase. And that's kind of what I was seeing is maybe the 07 house was built in the first phase, and it's still a community that's going. So the people are, tending to go for the second phase once they see it,
and the builder really can't go any lower. He can't price them lower. See, that's the problem. They're stuck. That is something to be said when you're doing the first phase of a building, and they don't want to drop their prices because they got to keep their numbers high for everybody else and stuff. And so you've got a client now who's trying to sell, and guess what? Obviously, there are some folks out there, but they'd rather buy new. So I don't know. We'd have to think about that. I'd have a hard time trying to tell you what you can do to make it different. And as the class will tell you, though, you can only fix what you can only fix. And guess what? In this instance, what's the only thing that you have control over? The price. We're back to you. Yeah, okay. I got to impress Jeff. So, okay, here we go. All right, so we talked about days on markets. We even talked about average price there per square foot. And how many homes are on the market now. That's a good thing for Melody, and also for Jeff. What you're kind of doing is looking at how many are out there in your price range now. So you got a little bit more detailed work we got to do for you, but I think we can still at least come back and tell them what you're doing and why you're doing it. Are you in Winston or where?
Oak Ridge.
And that is a fast moving area.
Yeah.
I just sold one there.
Well, good. You gonna talk to me later, right?
Mine wasn't that high though, but I just sold one over there. Mine was actually a modular. That was the one that I sold in 9 days. But see, it's in the 200. I'm in the 200, 300 range bubble. And that's why we priced it there, because I knew you start going up much higher that you were going to compete with some really high-end homes out in Oak Ridge. I know that area. Yeah, we'll be talking. I know that now, Jeff. We'll be talking. Okay. And section 2 down here talks about what are your sources for your local market statistics. And I'll tell you now, the best thing that we have is Matrix. You can research your butt off so many different ways. You can research by every field that's in there. So, you know, you start putting 2 or 3 together and you come up with a good search criteria. And like, you know, Melody back there, you can look at those $500,000 homes.
Tell you how much the mortgage, because April, she said, pretend I'm trying to sell my house. She said, how much did I pay for it? I was like, I don't know.
And really?
There's so much information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because once you're in Matrix, if you click on realist tax, you can go back out and see the last sale. And it tells how much they actually paid for that home.
Love it.
Yeah, it's a nice tool, and click on buttons and start using it, because it'll help you get a whole lot of research out the way, you know. And so when you go into that listing presentation, you can feel better, because you can say, look, out here in your, especially if it's a subdivision, you know, and that subdivision is moving. That's one thing about places like Walkertown. Sometimes we didn't have subdivisions. There was homes, just ranch homes built on streets and whatnot. They weren't necessarily what we call now subdivisions. So I have a harder time when I'm trying to do things out there. But hey, you're in a subdivision. All these homes that are selling in this new in this new section, guess what? New homes are days on market or such and such and such. The homes that have been older, that was built in the first section, they're selling such and such days on market. So you can set expectations right off the bat when you go in a listing presentation. And that lets them know that you know what the market shows and what the market tells them, because you're not making it up. You got facts about what the market is doing, and whether or not they like the price that you've given them, but you know why you gave it to them, you know, because you got proof. You're seeing what the market is doing. Well, we can price it at this range, and guess what? The average days on market for a home of your size, your amenities, we're probably going to be on the market 200 days. If you really need to get out of here, then that means we can't put it in this range. We're going to have to be lower to get the interest that you want to get to move out faster. So see, you can back up what you say. You just have to know what to look for. So hopefully I'm going to tell you what to look for so you can know how to back up what you say. Okay? And then anybody had any ahas from those little things we've been talking about? I know I've had I feel like we probably picked up a few, didn't we? We know what's going on now in the market with $500,000 homes. We know what Jeff is up against. You know, so anybody else get any ahas out of that? Go ahead.
The matrix thing would be great, right? Just to dig into that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a really tons of information in there, which is almost overwhelming. But once you get the feel for it, I think the aha moment for myself, not being in real estate prior to, I just always thought that realtors just came up with this, like, oh, well, you know, let's just put it on the market for this and see what happens.
Uh-huh.
There is
A rhyme to the reason.
Yes, and there's research, and I think there's a lot of times that the clients don't know that until you do get.
And they think we just sit back with our feet up eating bonbons and come up with numbers out of.
Oh, we're just gonna price this house for. Yeah, there's a misconception there. So yeah, that was my personal was there's a lot of research and detail that goes into finding out a price of.
And lots of times, though, unfortunately, like you said, they still want to price it where they want to price it. And you know and I'm not going to tell you that some people say, hey, well, you turn them down if they're so far out of your range. I have normally been able to have a conversation with them and say, look, this is what the market is showing us. I understand what you'd like, but let's look at it this way. If it doesn't move, if we don't have anybody coming to see it, then the market is proving that we're too high. And on day 16, and I write in the contract, on day 16, we're going to reduce it down to such and such. We're not going to be having another discussion about this, but I'll probably send you an email and let you know that I did it in MLS. And most of the time they say, okay, because you let them have their way for 15 days. But then you're going back to where you thought it should have been, and and you definitely want to put that in writing, because guess what? They're going to forget. I don't remember us talking about that. Oh yeah, we did go to page such and such of the contract that you initialed at the bottom, or we discussed this. So you have to be willing to stand on what you know, because if you're not, then you're going to have a house that's out there forever and ever, and it's going to mess with your days on market when you go to your next listing appointment and talk about how your average days on markets are for homes that you list.
I thought Jason had a really good idea, which was say, okay, if you're really far apart, is to actually get an appraisal and say, if I'm wrong, I'll pay for it. But if I'm right, you list it for what I tell you.
Yeah, that's a good idea. If you got somebody that you can't get around. But I'm gonna tell you guys, most of the time, knowledge is everything.
Yeah.
You tell them, you talk to them in an educated manner. You're able to show them why you're saying what you're saying, and believe it or not, you don't have to go that route unless it is such an extreme home that you just really can't find comps out there. I can tell you, there's probably only been 2 or 3 times that I've said, well, we might want to get appraisal. Because guess what? Appraisals are subjective too. And the one time I said it, I think he was in the range I was in. So see, then I was like, dang, that was money wasted. But you just wanted to make sure. But if you finding other ones out there, other apples, then I'm not going that route, because we've got other things out there to back us up. But if you're strictly out there in, what am I thinking about? Maybe in Stokes County or King, where you got a horse farm, or you know what I mean? Where you're just not seeing, because not everybody else out there is going to have the horse farm with the pond and the,
Right.
so then you may have to ask some help to make sure that you're not, undercutting yourself or whatever. But if you got some examples like we do in these subdivisions, I don't think there's any reason why anybody should have to go out and pay an appraisal, especially if you got homes that are selling. Now, if you're in a subdivision where there's no homes because everybody likes where they live, they've been there for 20, 30 years, you probably have to come outside of that subdivision, and maybe you have to make some adjustments there. And I don't make adjustments like 2-car garage versus 1-car garage. I'm looking at big dollar, the numbers themselves. You know what I mean? When I'm giving that range, I don't nickel and dime it down to a subject, but I'm going to give you a little sheet that would help you and give you an idea if you want to take away, for whether or not a home has 1 garage or 2 garages, or if it's brick or not. And that, to me, that's when you can't find anything else out there. And then you might want to start doing some subtraction that way. So, okay, on page 14, we talk about our pricing strategies. And here we come into where we were talking about with Mr. Jeff here, and what I asked him about his days on market and all that stuff. So pricing principles and strategies. It's very important to grasp the following 6 critical strategies that set the stage for using pricing criteria effectively. These strategies are standards you need to bear in mind as you approach pricing any property. And with practice, you'll just do it naturally. You won't even think about it. It'll be some of the things that, when you're looking, you'll be looking for all these little factors along the way. You got to know what sells. Hello. There's little point in winning a listing if it does not sell. To get a home sold for the most money and the least amount of time, it must be priced in the market. And there are 2 determining factors, the price and the condition. Competitively priced properties must present in the best possible condition outside and inside the home. And here's a little graph that talks about the combined selling power of the right price and the great property condition. I have this little graph in my listing presentation. Talks about the percentage of buyers who look at a property increases and decreases in direct proportion to the property's price compared to market value. Pricing above the market does not get you showings. Pricing at or just below the market does. So obviously you are getting showings out there, Jeff. So obviously you got people interested in the home. So that's a good thing. But I feel like if you're getting showings in a $500,000 range, so that is showing that somebody's willing to buy it. So that is telling us that you're too high, no matter what we want to say, because you got 10 showings and you're in a $500,000 price range, which we already know doesn't sell as fast as others. But you got people to come see yours. So obviously they like the house or they like the location. They like the looks of it and the location. So what's the one thing they not liking? See, it keeps coming back to that one little thing we can fix.
Well, they had the house appraised.
Okay.
They were listed at $27,000 below appraisal.
Oh,
So we're already.
So then they really ain't liking you very much right now, are they?
Well, no, they're fine.
They're fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got a great relationship with them.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
And you're
we're-
27 below. See, so, gosh,
They're texting me all the time. Have you done this? Have you done that? When's the brokers open? Do another open house this Sunday. Have you called the people? Like they're all over me.
How will that relationship be at the end of all
That's a good question, because see, it's funny because all the things that we are talking about, which still keep pointing to price, seems like you guys would be there. But see, what I'm keep coming back to though is days on
Yeah,
market.
and I'm curious to know how I get an average for that. I mean, I can add it all up and look. but
Well,
is there an
basically,
easy way to hit a button?
well, basically, no. Well, what you're going to have to do is you're going to, we'll talk about it because I got to think it through for you, but you're going to have to do some calculations on your own. You're going to have to go in there. You'll find like 10 properties or whatever that's in your price range, or 6 or whatever you find, add up the total days on market and divide it by how many houses you had out there, basically. You're going to have to add those days on market up, but you can find them, thank God. You can see what's closed. You want to look at what's,
I'm looking at it.
look at what's closed. Oh, you are you? No, I'm just kidding. You're supposed to be paying attention to
I'm
me.
good. I'm trying to stay
See, look, can't y'all tell? See, I wasn't supposed to be behind a computer screen. But anyway, you can look at that for closed sales in their price range and look for actual days, for things that are active. So yeah, you should get. Do you have anything out there that's pending in your subdivision or anything like that close to you?
No.
Okay, so we'll do some
There are
looking.
several houses that are for sale, and we're priced well compared to them.
Okay,
The closest comp is more expensive and it's smaller.
it's been on the market longer than yours now. Yeah, so you are going to have to go back, and what we're going to talk about next, unfortunately, may not help you as much because of the fact your days on market are already telling us that you're expected to be on market for long.
One of the problem too is you get 2 sellers in 2 different directions. You got one.
Well, but it sounds like at least they may be in 2 different directions, but they're all they want it to sell. So it's not like one doesn't want it to sell and the other one does. You know what I mean? I think that would be a worse scenario. So they do want it to sell, but it's like,
It sounds like one might be more agreeable to a price drop to move it than the other. Yeah.
oh, okay. So you
And
got,
I think he's moving into the territory of hurting her. There's all that personal stuff going on. So it's like,
Dang.
oh, she wants to drop it. Well, no.
And she's moving, right? She was leaving soon.
Yeah. She's already accepted a job in Hawaii. So she's like, she can't just drive in for a closing. She feels the pressure. And she's the
well,
one here from
but you know what? Yes, she can. Tell her that's the small stuff.
Yeah.
All she has to do is sign it in front of a notary in Hawaii. They fax it or FedEx it or whatever. That's the small stuff. Look, my investor's going to India. He's already giving me a POA to buy a house if we get one under contract, and he can do the wire transfer from India. You talk to your bank. You work with folks who's got to do what you got to do. Don't let that stress her. Go and be happy. That's what she needs to do. Don't let him keep her from being happy about this. Just keep moving forward. Number 2, know what the seller and you can and can't control. We keep coming back to this. An important part of the pricing process is to help your sellers understand that agents and sellers do not determine the purchase price of their home. Instead, the market determines the price. We keep talking about that. Pricing to sell is based on understanding what is selling, and use the simple dialogue below. Hey, Mr. and Mr. Seller, some of the things you can control during the selling process are the condition of your property, the availability of your home for showings, and your positioning in the market. In the end, value is determined solely by what a buyer is willing to pay in today's market based on comparing your home to others currently on the market for sale. I don't determine value, and neither do you. The market determines value. Does this make sense? That was a long, drawn-out version of what I say. I could never take that long to get anything out. Well, come on. Y'all have figured that out by now. I'm moving. I'm not just hunter. But y'all get the point, right? This is where you're telling them we can only control what we can only control. There are variables out there that we're never going to be able to fix no matter how much we want to. Location is the very biggest thing that there is. And we are going to price your home based on what the market is showing us, not what you and I would like for it to show us. We got to go by what we see. We can't make this stuff up, in other words. So, and at the very bottom, number 3, this is my favorite all-time listing presentation, little graph that I use. This pushes it home like nothing else ever did. This is how I get people to agree to the fact on day 16, we're going to lower this if we've had a whole lot of people looking at it and no offers, or we've had nobody looking at it. Because it says the best chance to sell a home is when it first comes on the market. Sellers need to be clear on this, that there is a window of opportunity that opens and closes quickly. The following graph depicts how buyer interest climbs rapidly when a listing hits the market and declines after the first month. And I took a strategic pricing class because to go along with the CMA, guess what? She told us the same thing. If you're going to get most of your offers and everything's going to happen within that first month. So if you wait till that first month, then that's almost too late to make that change. If you make that pricing change halfway through, you don't lose your momentum. That's why for me on day 16, we're doing something. Unless I know, like maybe out here in Jeff's case, that I'm not expected to sell this house for a year, well, then that first 30 days don't mean a heck of a lot. But if I'm in a market for homes that right now, homes that are priced at usually about 230 and below are moving like that. That's why I priced my house in Oak Ridge at 226. It was gone in 7 days.
There's one comp that is more expensive that sold in 8 days.
In your neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. So
what is something?
It had a pool, it had a hot tub, it had this outdoor everything.
Do you have all those things too?
No, they got an ugly little. I mean, it's beautiful, but they got a little bitty yard. And
well, see,
a little bit beautiful.
I mean, it's beautiful.
Oxymoron, right? Well, you know what? See, maybe it's some factors like that we just haven't dwelled into enough to.
I can do. I just don't know what that can.
Well, you can't make the yard any bigger.
I can't.
And see that then that comes back to what we've been saying. What can you change? Even though you guys already know your price lower, you're going to have to combat the factors that are people saying anything like that on the
price is too high.
That's all you keep coming back with. Well, then you got to trust what you heard, and the market kind of shows us it.
Brass. Like,
see, now you're starting to give me more information. Yes, buddy, we're gonna have to lower the price because
you can help out with those.
Well, I'm hearing factors that
offering a $5,000 update credit.
But I'm gonna tell you what, people don't care. People don't care about that as much as they do at the price. If you can give me a $5,000 credit, you can lower the price $5,000 because that's what you're doing. It's the same thing, people. Yep. But people will look at the price versus going in and looking under remarks that we're going to give you a $5,000 credit.
Please don't do the price and no credit.
Thank you. See, if they're willing to do that, then they're willing to lower price. They just don't want to look at it the same way, but it's the exact same thing. And it's obvious that you've got to have something to bump somebody else's attention, and it's going to be price. It's not going to be adding that to the remarks because people have to open up the MLS to even see those remarks. See what I'm saying? So if you can take off $5,000 to give a credit, you can take $5,000 off the price. And in a home in your area, though, I hate to say it, you probably need a good $10,000 hit.
I tried.
Well, and that's all you can do sometimes. But
keep trying.
How many days have you been on? Did you tell me now?
14.
Okay. See, you're getting to that middle of the road. If they really want to sell it quickly. And it sounds like one does and one kind of doesn't really care. So, it's going to be harder for you to push. But this graphic right here is a good thing. Mm-hmm. And did you go in under the listing presentation under, you can look up listing presentations in mykw.kw and that graph is in there. And you can pull it out. But it's in color. I love it because it explains to people, when most office R receives is doing weeks 4 through 6. So when I'm coming along here at week 3, guess what? If I make my change right there, I didn't stop the flow. If I wait to day 30, I've lost some momentum. At that point, I'm starting to chase the market. But especially if I already know that we may be priced a little high, So that's just more momentum for me to say, okay, y'all, on day 16, we need to do something. And go ahead and set that parameter up at the beginning. Okay? So if you don't do anything else, you definitely need to have that graph in your listing presentation. People seem to just somehow they can grasp. I mean, it's real easy. It's right out there written. And we didn't make this up. This is what people that have been in the business long enough have been able to see. And you see trends after you've been doing this a while. You can see what's happening. And trust me when I say that it has worked for me.
Mhm.
It has worked. Just changing it within that first 15 days, I've gone ahead and gotten an offer on something.
What
That I,
percent?
hmm?
What percent do you change it to make somebody?
I usually say about 5%. But if you're outside of your range that you were presenting to them to the beginning, that's where I would go to. I'd go back to where I thought it should be, in other words. And you can see if that's 5% or 10%. Most of the time, it's about 5 to 10% is the range. I think most people will say they reduce it to. But I'd go back and look at what you initially presented if they wanted to be higher than where you were,
Right.
because we would have determined that when we were doing that listing presentation. Say you were at your range told you that you were somewhere between like 125, 135, and they wanted to be at 155. Well, guess what? Day 16, we're coming back to 135.
Hmm.
So see, that's 20, possibly 20,000. But you already established that because when you presented it to the beginning, your range was not as high as where they wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd go back to where I thought it should be. And you can catch momentum from there. And then at day 30, it's coming down again.
Mm-hmm.
Because that tells you that your range still might have been a little bit high, that you had initially set.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm getting away from where they wanted to be.
Right.
Because we know the market's showing us that that was wrong.
Right.
Okay? And then we look at number 4, price to, that's on page 16, you guys, if you're keeping up in the book. Price to reflect market movement. Pricing requires fact and numbers, yet it's also an art of persuasion, per se. Choosing the right comparable properties is a big step in the right direction. Remember, we talked about that. You're choosing them yourself. But there's much more to it. Your job as a listing agent is to help your sellers understand how the right price impacts the marketability and sellability of their home. Marketability and sellability are also determined by the following: market direction, whether the market is appreciating or depreciating, whether it's going up or down, and the market speed of change, how quickly prices are changing, and what the rate of change is. So see, there we go. We're talking about days on market again, and whether you're in a seller's market or a buyer's market. Don't chase the market. Here we go. Price ahead of it. Your ability to be knowledgeable of the current market pays off when it comes to any kind of shifting market, whether shifting up, appreciating, or shifting down, depreciating, or even in a stable market. Another graph that I always use is the one below, talking about a rising market. In a rising market, sellers who feel time is on their side may price above the market and hope the market will catch up and bring them the price they want, provided the market continues to rise. Well, yeah, I mean, eventually, but you might be 5 years down the road. Even in a seller's market now where prices are going up, how fast are they going up? They're not going up by $30,000 every month. You know what I mean? So you still got to be conscientious of the fact that if you're pricing high and you're hoping the market's going to get there, yeah, it'll get there. But when? We could be talking 5 or 6 years down the road. And guess what? Is that worth wasting your time on as a listing agent? If you got somebody whose mindset is that far out of range? Yeah. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I can appreciate the fact that you're really, waiting on the market. And yes, the market is going up. But at the rate that we're talking about, you could be 3 or 4 years down the road before you see this. And really, that means to me that you don't really want to sell at this time. And I'm talking about we got to be hundreds of thousands, out of whack. Because sometimes, even though they think they want to wait for the market, or they think their house is worth more than it is, they can see after a couple, like I said, after 15 days, you can see. I tell anybody, you can see what your home is going to do in the first 2 weeks. You can see if it's priced right. After that, the market has spoken. So, and then you have to say, what can we fix or what can we change? And if you've already told me you're not going to make any improvements on the home, you're not painting, you're not doing anything else, well, for us, then there's only one thing we can do. We have to lower your price to get somebody who's willing to come in and paint and put in the stuff that you've already told me that you don't want to put in. Well, I know it's worth such and such. It is when it's in great condition. Because everybody else's house that sold at that price, and see, that's another thing that I do when I'm going on a listing appointment. Sometimes when I haven't seen the home, it's a little harder to do, but it's always easy to print out color pictures or take your laptop of homes that have sold in that area. Lots of times I get people to tell me their house is not worth what they think it is by just showing them pictures of houses that sold. already, because guess what? They had granite countertops, they had hardwood floors, and they sold for such and such. And you told me you wanted to sell your house higher than this. Well, does your house look like this one? And they'll say, no, I don't think so. And I said, well, do you think we can sell it then for more than theirs did? I guess not. You know, I don't have to be the bad guy. I can just show you what the market is out here for anybody to see. But you're not privy to this. But let me show you some homes in your neighborhood that sold within the last 6 months. And this house had granite, and this house had this, and they had just painted, and they had a pool in the back. Although pools don't give you that much value. Don't let that fool you.
Right.
Yeah.
Pools don't give you that much value, but the interior things do. And guess what? What sells houses, you guys? Tell me. Which 2 rooms in the house?
Kitchen.
And there you go. And if I got brass fixtures,
Oh,
look, all day long. And the other one has the chrome or the dark, what is that, the other color that they're like in well, not, I mean, it's more like, not the chrome, but the brushed nickel, and what's the rust one, the darker, y'all know the one I'm talking about.
what would you put in there today?
Anything but brass. I wouldn't put the shiny chrome either. It would be like the brushed nickel, or it would be that, oh God, and I know my colors, and I know my features.
Bronze, is it the bronze?
The dark bronzed, the brush bronze. Yes, thank you. That was the name I was looking for. Thank you, Melody.
You know what, if they're going to do a $5,000,
Why don't they just put the $5,000 into doing?
someone to say, hey, go in and change out all my fixtures. And probably
Yeah, they're probably not
Take
$5.
little
That's a
soundbars
good
off
thought.
For, $100, you come in there and just twist them on real fast.
That's a good thought too.
just somebody.
If they could take that
He
$5,000.
sits at home. He could do it himself.
Gotta load
I
that
see why she's
contractor
divorcing
pack
him,
full.
honestly.
Oh, really?
I mean, he
Yeah.
can do a lot that he doesn't do. Like
But
they
if you're
talk
willing
about-
to give somebody else $5,000, I would
Right.
take the $5,000 and pay a handyman and come in and switch those things out.
Maybe less than
Yeah, I tried to talk him into 10,000 worth of upgrades.
Is he there when the house is shown?
No.
No, he better not.
Go do it.
I was gonna s-
I want to change out his fixtures right now.
Yeah,
Let's
really
go. Let's
do.
go.
And I was gonna say no, he better not be.
Yeah, so it's,
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
No, I have to kick them out sometimes. They don't want to go anywhere.
That's another conversation
Again,
we'll have before
yeah.
we're out of here. That's
I
another.
think this is a good seller for me to have out of the gate.
It is. Guess what? You will learn so much.
Every little thing I can.
Seems like it's happening. That could happen is happening. And guess what? I'm gonna tell you a secret. I'd rather probably start with somebody that crazy, and I hate to put it that way,
No, it's crazy. It's a crazy situation.
because you're gonna be on your toes now for everything. You're gonna be ready for anything that comes your way after this one, and that's not a bad thing. I say the best way to succeed is have a failure.
yep, that's right.
My first HUD, I lost it, and came back and got it, and then I got it to closing. Guess what? After that, they started calling me the HUD queen around here. Cause guess what? I know what to do.
Yeah.
If I was on my own, if I had not, cause that's when HUDs weren't, they were just probably taking off really good. If I hadn't had that failure, I wouldn't have paid as close attention as the process probably as I needed to. So now I can tell you how to do a HUD closing with my eyes shut. I can tell you how to do a 203K. Psh, nothing to it, but you got to be diligent. I know what I have to do. So the best thing for you is probably this one. You won't have any problems out the door after this one. Because guess what? You're going to get it sold.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll know everything that you went through. But I'm with everybody else in here. I tell him to give me that $5,000 and I call a handyman in and get the work done. Because you're going to have to change light fixtures. You're going to have to change. But those changes in your bedrooms and your bathrooms would make such a big difference. Because that's what they're seeing now. First of all, they're coming in and seeing that there's no backyard. And then we're looking at all that brass and saying to ourselves, gosh, we got to change out all this stuff. And for $500,000, we shouldn't have to do all that.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying.
They had awful wallpaper and bright colors, and I made them paint. They took all the wallpaper down, they painted everything.
So they did start making some
they have
steps.
done a lot already.
And I got a feeling she was behind all that, probably.
Probably. But she's,
She's moving on to Hawaii now. Now you're stuck with the disgruntled man. He's mad because she's going to Hawaii.
It was weird. I did the open house with him on Sunday, and she had just served him the papers an hour before I got there.
Oh, God.
Oh, no.
But they left the house for the open house, right? I mean, they left, right?
Yeah, they left
Okay.
together. Which was
Ugh,
awesome. So she leaves the room. He comes in and he says, "Did you hear what we're doing?" You know,
Like you
I'm
really,
not even opening her papers until this day, and they're sharing with me things. That
like you really, that TMI. I'd be almost like TMI.
I represent both of y'all, so I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to hear that crap.
And you don't say crap, but you say, I don't need to. You know, I understand you want to share, but I need to be able to work with both
But
of you
they
guys.
still do. So
Yeah.
I know things from one, and I know things.
And you
from
just
the other.
take it and let it go. Yeah, that's all you can do. So
Yeah.
they want somebody to
Mhm.
talk to, bless their hearts. In the next little graph, you guys talks about a declining market, how you can be chasing the market at that point too, on page 17, because it talks about when prices are falling, sellers make a huge mistake by pricing too high and hoping to attract the offer they want and thinking they will drop the price later if that strategy doesn't work. Well, guess what? At that point, everything else has continued to go down, so you're in behind it. You're chasing it down or you're chasing it up.
Mhm.
That's why you got to do your best to put them in the price range that's working for right now. Sellers who price right will get the buyers, while the listing that's chasing the market down will take longer to sell. And we've all figured that out now. Number 6, don't be afraid to be professionally honest. And I've been telling y'all this since we started this one. Pricing right is hard work, but it's worth it because it gets your sellers to their goals and you make money for your business. Professional honesty is your best approach. It means understanding where the customers are coming from and being professional enough to stand up for them and tell them the truth about the tough topics such as market conditions, property conditions, which encompasses features, amenities, and location, and buyer agent feedback, and comparable market sales. Got to be honest, and this is the one they always tell us to use. Do you want me to tell you the truth, or do you want me to tell you what you want to hear? You ask somebody that, and they're looking at you like, huh? They don't realize sometimes that they don't want to hear the truth until you mention it to them. Then, of course, they say, oh, yeah, tell me the truth. And then that's when it really hits home, right? If the seller insists on a higher than market price, get agreement now that if you have not had a bona fide offer in a reasonable short time period, you reduce the price to your recommended price. There we go. You can say the first few weeks your home is on the market are the most critical and will attract the most serious buyers. If we don't get a bona fide offer in this time, the market is telling us the home is overpriced. If after 3 weeks this is what's happening, do you agree to reduce the price to any recommended price to meet market demands? That's not necessarily the script I use, but I say the same thing. You know, I told y'all off the bat what I tell them.
It's not sold in 15 days. We've got an offer.
Mhm.
Reduce the price.
On day 16, we're going to make a change. And look, I mean, this script is backing me up, you know, but this is what I've been told. This is what I practice. And it makes it so much easier when you say this up front. Don't hit them on day 15.
Right.
Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you know, this is the range we discussed. I know you would like to see if we can get a higher number. Okay, I understand that. But let me tell you, if after 15 days we don't have an offer, we need to make a change on day 16. Because we do not want to lose the momentum that we've already established. The first 30 days are our most important days. If we are trying to sell quickly and you want to get an offer. That's the way I'm going to put it to them. And they're okay with that because most of the time, though, you know, they're where we think we should be. It's amazing how many times I've got a number in my head that I wrote down on a piece of paper, and after we've talked about it, their number's pretty much right there with mine. Then you're okay if, say, for instance, I'm at 149.9 instead of 150, you know, or they want to be at 152. That's no big deal. You're still right there pretty close to each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think lots of people will tell you that people search on $10,000 increments, you know, that they'll search from 140 to 150. So if I price mine at 149.9, they're going to see it. If I go at 151, they may not see it because they're probably going to stop their search at the 150 mark. So that's why you see houses priced kind of like you do, 149.9, you know, or if they're going to do 150, 155, they're 149.9, you know, they're always 154. They're right underneath that number that they probably were thinking about. But most people work within that $10,000 range. Look at most of the listings that you see. You're right underneath that other whole number. Because you want to make sure you're not missed on that search.
Right.
So, because if they're looking at a 148, if that's in their range, most people going to search up to 150. still. So they're still going to catch you and hope that they can negotiate down, and they probably can if they're that close. You know, because either with concessions or something coming along. So, and as a buyer's agent, aren't you going to be searching and probably,
Oh, yeah.
you know, say for instance that your person is approved for, I like most of the time I hear round numbers when they're even approved, you know, 120, 120, 125 or 255, you know what I mean? So then your search, you're always going to go above what they're approved for.
Right.
See, it's all in mindset. It's all about what you're thinking. So, anything anybody want to ask me about at this point that we've talked about? Anything anybody took out of this that you hadn't thought about when we started this class?
Well, I like the idea of the bathroom and the kitchen. That's important, right?
Oh yeah, those they will tell you now. That's what sells a house.
I like your graphs for your listing presentation, kind of highlighting the pivotal time on the market, how that really impacts your offers.
Yeah.
Really good.
And it does. That's going to grab their attention because it's something that is simple, it's easy, and they can see why you're telling them on day 16 we should make a change.
Right.
You know, like I said, I was in Nashville looking at houses, and the majority of them have been on the market for over 100 days.
Mhm.
And can't get the question, why is it been on the market so long? It's like, it automatically becomes suspect. Either there weren't anything on the home.
See,
It's
doesn't
like,
it?
Why does it keep getting passed over? Why is it not sold?
And but you can combat that by saying this is the average days on market in this area.
Yeah.
They do not have as many buyers as they do.
The thing is, like,
property.
especially if that doesn't match up, though, if days on market is way lower, then
Well, then you have then you've got the other end of the stick. But I'm saying that's what research is going to show you, either one or the other. The days on market are higher for this area, or you've got some folks, unfortunately, that are not priced correctly.
It's like she wants to make an offer on one of the properties, and she's like, "We're gonna lowball the crap out of this." I'm like, "That's where you want to start." I mean, you know.
That doesn't mean they're going to sell it to you because you
Oh, yeah,
lowball it at
that's
that
what I'm trying
price.
to, be prepared for them to counter and stuff. But I mean,
Oh yeah.
yeah, she obviously automatically recognizes that their leverage.
You're the person who put that out there about going to another area. Is that what you're not the guy who put that on the product on
That
the
was Eric, I think.
okay, Eric, I know somebody was talking about going to another area with the buyer.
Like Fable, I think.
Mm-hmm. So she wants to try to lowball it because it's been on the market over 100
And
days.
it needs a lot of updates and work and everything, and of course they're not offering allowances, and you know, that's why maybe in lieu of lowballing we kind of go with a more reasonable offer, but all cash for them to do certain repairs prior to closing. So we're kind of
Well, and the best thing that can back that up is when you get that home inspection.
yeah, and the problem is the house prior to this last, I mean, I guess it was under contract when the contract fell through because during due diligence, the inspection revealed there's a lot more work than they'd done, so it couldn't justify the mortgage they were trying to get on it. So, of course, knowing that tidbit, that's, that's a little more leverage.
Well, then it seems like that person would have either come back to make some changes, but that's why they're doing allowances. And to me, allowances and the price change is the same thing. I don't know in who other world is not. But if you're willing to tell me you're gonna give me $10,000 to make some changes, well, then guess what? Just lower your price by $10,000.
I just looked at your property, Jeff. I'm sorry.
That's it.
It's like they built a really, really, really nice high-end home, but then threw like mid-range builder-grade components in it. Like that's really what it looks like.
See, that's an F.
Lovely.
And I'm like, I was just looking at it. I saw like the gold bath, the gold shower. I'm like, oh God,
It's awful.
but you got like 4,000 square feet there. It's like and it's
43.
Yeah, and like the loft, the basement, they're gorgeous, but it's like
See, there's some insight
I got
that
this
that
sweet
he saw.
Camaro, and I'm gonna put these little, the ugly seat covers in it, like that kind of thing.
Well, see, there's insight that those of us who wouldn't be able to look at right now.
I'm crafting an email to them as we speak. I keep adding paragraphs. Y'all keep talking. We'll use this class.
It's like Achilles' heel is those amenities. And
Well,
stuff.
see, and guess what? What do? We started with the big picture, and now we're drilling down, and we're seeing all the little things. There's a
I
reason.
think that's an easy fix as opposed
Yeah.
to like a bright red countertop or an orange tub or whatever. I mean, those
Yeah.
smaller things are the easier eye-catching fix.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Not
then
like
they say
they've got a
themselves,
olive green
Yeah.
sunken
That's a
tub
beautiful
or
home.
something.
A lot of space.
And see, and I'm thinking that the 5,000 could go a really long
oh
way.
yeah, like I said, if you know a good guy or if they're handy themselves and they could replace and upgrade some of that stuff, then instead of offering a 10,000 reduction or a 10,000 allowance, you fix it for $5,000 and keep the price
Because it sounds like your price could possibly be right if there were some other factors that were taken care of. And see, and then you can come back and say that.
Did you show us all the ugly in the photos? Because what are we missing?
I love that. There I've taught you a lot already. Look. But I was going to say that would, and there are some handymen out here, and I just recently, I think, met somebody that does that out of Kernersville. So, and he came back with a reasonably good price on a fence, but the guy who's supposed to put the fence in is actually going to do it, so I can't give it to him. But I was ready to give it to this guy for my investor. But yeah, I think we could probably find you some folks that would go in and make those changes for you.
And it seems purely cosmetic, really. I mean, obviously I have walked the home, but
well, but you told me you said a mouthful
right,
with your statement alone says that.
It reminds me of what you see when you walk into like the shooter homes thing, stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, the mid range.
Mm-hmm.
You got stuck in a mansion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where it sticks out. Like a
But they
sore
use
thumb.
the sugar features. And
Yeah,
they use the sugar. Yeah. No granite countertops. Oh, see,
Shame on them.
yeah, that's almost like a no in a
All
500
white
range
appliances,
home.
Like,
All white appliances.
I know.
Oh, shut up. What color are the cabinets?
Brown. Say it's cute.
Contractor standard.
In whose terms for 500,000 is that cute? If I,
It's 440. I'm just.
oh wow.
So generous.
And I'm gonna give you 400,000. I gotta come in and change my stainless steel, add granite, change out all my brass. No way, Jose. Mm-mm. So yeah,
Contractor pricing at Lowe's for all those.
you could get a contractor pack of all those for 4,000. Stainless steel. Hello. Yeah, they either gonna make some changes, and unfortunately, they're gonna lower the price because they're doing it. I mean, that $5,000 ain't gonna be. They're gonna say, that's my countertop, but it's not. But you know, they're gonna over exaggerate. That person who's wanting to buy it is gonna start looking at everything and pricing it out for more than what it would cost them to go ahead and make those changes. Yeah, if you did some updates, I got a feeling your price would be just fine. See, we've drilled down to what's the problem. It's not the price. You would sell it if it looked like it was $450,000 home. I bet you can go up and pull up any other 450,000 home in that area, and they're not gonna look nothing like yours.
Yeah, the square footage, I think is an attraction.
It's got to be 4,000 square feet.
But if you already have to pack up your junk, move to another house, the last thing you'll do is before you move your junk there is tear everything out and replace it. So that's again, like you said, the allowance.
I know why they're doing what they're doing, but I'm saying either they're going to lower the price
Yeah.
or they're going to fix it. If they're stuck on that price, then they got to make some changes.
Yeah.
Because you ought to be able to pull in that subdivision and go out there and pull pictures of anybody else who's in their range, and I guarantee you, they got granite countertops, they got stainless steel appliances, and they do not have brass fixtures.
Is the reason they're not willing to go down on the price of their mortgage? I mean, do they owe?
They owe about 150.
Oh, so
Oh,
they
they got
got plenty of
room to
room.
play,
I
yeah.
just thought maybe.
He just don't want wife to get that money right now because she's going to Hawaii, okay? That's what the problem is. That's really what it is in a nutshell, and you can't fix that, unfortunately. You're not a-
Just bring the hardware to him.
But to back up what I'm saying is, I would pull me some pictures of houses that have sold in that price range and say, look at the interiors. Does your interior look like this for that price? And he's going to say no. And you're going to say, well, either we're going to make some changes this way or we're going to reduce it, because somebody else seeing $5,000 just means more work for them to have to do.
So if they choose to make the changes, that means the house comes off the market, retake photos, like it.
Yeah, but that wouldn't hurt you. That really, I mean, to me, that's a better option than to keep on going down this road we going on right now and hoping that we sell for $450 when we're
Get in
not.
for 2 weeks and come back fresh.
Exactly. Your days on market could start over because I think you got to be off for 2 weeks.
And all your really nice aerial photos still stay intact. That's not
Yeah.
gonna be
Yeah, you're not going to lose anything. You're not going to lose anything. And I'd much rather see you do that and get a fresh start than to keep going down this road where it's not going to end pretty, because he's going to be mad 60 days from now because nothing still happened at 450. But I think that your price is doable. Well, what you got going on now that we keep on hearing, see, I'm getting a piece of information here, one from you over there, and I think it's something that can be fixed. In other words, the condition of the home can be fixed.
I tell you, if you're handy, Jeff, you can pick up a little extra money on the side. Like, all right, I'll come over here.
No, unfortunately, I'm not. But I will take the name and number of your friend and Curtis.
I'll give it to you. I'll be happy to. And he'll tell you what he can and cannot do, because he was telling me that he does some light electrical, like changing out fixtures and stuff, and that's what we're talking about. And you might need to go shopping and get all those things, bring them in yourself, and then he could, but you could discuss with him what he can and can't do. But I'd advise you to probably go pick out the things that you think, or, hello, you give me a call, take a picture, say, Vanessa, you like this one? I'll tell you from home, so.
Like Jason was saying, like, give him a box to work in. Don't give him free.
Oh yeah, well, and that's why I say from his perspective, it'd be better probably he'd go and pick out the things. But hey, go shoot a picture. Say, Vanessa, you like these fixtures? Send it to me. I'll tell you yes or no. But or you can look at what's already out there on the market. I tell you, it's better to mimic something that's already worked than to go down that road by yourself. And you're going down that road by yourself with those brass fixtures.
It's a lonesome road.
It is. All right, y'all. Let's get back with it, because we don't have too much to go. Does anybody want to take a little break right now? Okay, I'll let you, and then we're going to come back and let our newest person introduce herself. Okay, as we're on to page 20. See, don't start me laughing. Jeff, on page 20. Let's see if I can find that slide that matches. Okay. We're talking about the CMA comparative market analysis. Let's see if they got a page 20. Here we go. The CMA is a process by which a property to be listed is evaluated against other comparable properties to determine a recommended list price. Use the CMA to present information to help sellers understand and accept the right price for their home. The CMA process includes the following. You got to search. You're going to search the MLS for properties that correspond to the subject property, the one which you're pricing, and you're going to use the 4 main criteria that we've already established: location, size, amenities, and condition. Number 2, you're going to select a small number of recently sold properties and properties pending sale that you believe represent the closest comparison to your seller's property. The number of comparables available will be impacted by market condition. I'm going to tell you something. Lots of people will go in and choose active, closed, pending, accepting back. Or you can put in as much stuff as you want to. But I'm going to tell you, I have a problem using pending sales. They haven't closed. They may not close. So I'm just a closed kid. If it's closed, that's what I'm using. But you can use whatever, To me, if you're talking about pending, well, that tells you that, yeah, there's a lot of offers being put in on properties and being accepted, but it doesn't tell me
how much they've offered, right?
No.
Right.
See, that's the
It's
thing.
not really a true.
But you can say, well, the market in your area is moving, because we had so many active here, and now we got so many pending. You can see that people are purchasing, but to me, that's not valid for me when I'm trying to come up with my CMA. I'm using what's closed. That's a fact.
Makes sense.
But I'm telling you, people do. You see where in here they do tell you that you can use pending. So I guess if you can, it's for whatever purposes that you're pulling that information for. So you just have to think about it when you're going to use pending. I've seen people pull, of course, active to me tells me if I'm getting ready to list it, how much competition I got out there. But I've seen people pull active, closed, pending, the ones accepting backups. Seeing to me, yeah, the house is marketable.
Days on market and what price range, right? It kind of.
Well, if I'm listing it, maybe, but see, when we're doing a comparative market analysis, how would you think to use that? See, that's the problem I have. Is for me, that's the rationale that I have. But if you can find a reason for using it for your comparative market analysis, only like you said, unless you're talking about true, okay, for this area, we're getting contracts on properties within such and such days or whatever, you can expect that. So, there's a reason, but you just be sure you understand what you're pulling it for and what you're relating it back to. So, and then once you decide on a price, number 3, to recommend to your seller that takes into account those comparables and that your seller's motivations and goals, like we talked about, are they willing, do they want to get it sold now? Or they don't care if it sells anytime soon because I want this price. I've heard those conversations. Well, it doesn't matter to me how long it sells because this is what I want to pay for. This is what I want to get. Excuse me. That's wonderful that that's what you want to get, but that does not mean that that's what someone is going to offer you.
Right.
So do you truly want to me, that's almost not a person that you don't want to be bothered with. If you've got that firm of a mindset, what's the odds of you selling that house? Because you've already told me you don't care how long it sits out here on the market. As long as you get this price. I can't guarantee you you're going to get that price.
As long as they're reasonable with their price, maybe.
Yeah, but if they're not,
Yeah.
that's the one I'm talking about, the one that's not reasonable, and the one that has already made up in their mind, and the market has showed you that their price is too high.
Yeah.
And if they're not willing to concede that in 15 days, if the market shows them that they're too high, what can you do? So see, sometimes you have to be willing to walk away. You have to, but once you've discussed all this with them and you see they're not going to change their mindset, and a lot of for sale by owners, that's why they're out there. Because trust me, they've been approached by agents. But no, this is the price. I wanted to let it sit out there for years. Well, most agents ain't going to deal with you. You laughing. Isaac's laughing, but it's the truth. I have been told that by this nice older gentleman. Well, this is what I think it's worth, and I don't care how long it sits out there. And I said, well, best of luck to you, sir.
People fall in love with their house. I mean,
No, you're just ignorant. You just have decided this is what.
I'm looking at.
Thank you. Because your reason is not just, you don't have any idea. Because I said, well, how did you come up with the price? This is what I want. I've called up some FISBOs. I'm curious sometimes as to what makes them, want to do this. Some people want to try, and that's okay. But I say, well, if you haven't sold it in a couple of weeks, are you willing to maybe, talk to an agent? I just like to come out there and let you know what the market is showing me in regards to the value of your home. Well, this is what I want, so it doesn't matter to me how long it stays out there. Best of luck to you. Call me up in about 6 months when you haven't sold it. I'd love to work with you, because I would, but it's like they're blind to what I might tell them in regards to the fact, it almost sounds like they already know that they're really not going to get, but they're determined. You know what I mean? And I don't want to pay a commission. The work we do, I'm not going to work for free. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I just say, okay, well, best of luck. Thanks for talking with me. I really appreciate knowing how you come up with what you came up with. Because I've looked at what the market is showing me, and I'm thinking the price you gave me is not what it's going to sell for, or even in the range. But I can already tell that we're not going to be able to have a conversation because you told me this is what. And maybe they get their backs up because they get so many different calls from different agents, But it's funny to call up some of them up and talk to them sometime. How'd you get this price? Well, I just felt like that's what it was worth. And we're taking all this time to figure out why we're giving them the range that we're giving, but they just felt like it. So, well, the tax value is really off. And I think, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I know that, but it's not what you're thinking it is either. So, it ain't 100,000 above what the tax value is. Well, and then I said, well, have you made any updates to it? No, it looked pretty good in 77. I think. Anyway, like y'all, it's fun out here. And they think we sit back with our feet up and eat bonbons and figure out what price. Oh, let's put that price on this house right now, so. But anyway, we'll get back to page 21, pricing recommendations. This is where you present your price by showing the sellers the following pages from your listing presentation. This is what they recommend. The list of recent listings and sales most comparable to their own property. A listing sold, pending, and active for their immediate neighborhood, covering a recent time period, usually the last 30 days. And I definitely use that if I can find it. If you can find within 30 days, sometimes you have to go a little further out. I try to stay in a subdivision if it has one at all costs, but I'm not going out for a year in a subdivision. You know what I mean? That's too far back, the way the market is shifting. I wouldn't go any further out than the last 6 months in a subdivision. And if you can't find anything in that subdivision, that means you got to open up your search. Has anybody noticed that nice little feature on the first line of Matrix when you're doing a search where you can go in and put in the address and search within like 0.5? See, that's such a great tool Because used to be we had to go in and click and make a radius come out how far we wanted to do it. But that's the easiest thing they've come up with now.
I can't get the dates though. I don't know where it says from date to date.
It gives you a date range. It's
Okay.
down on the right hand side. Well, I'll show it to you because I use a 10-year range from the date of the actual subject property. 10 years below, 10 years above. Once you start getting outside of that range, the houses don't compare normally. That's just a standard that somebody taught me a long time ago when I started, and I kind of use that.
You mean in terms of when the house is built?
Yes, age of the home. I'm sorry. Don't know quite what I said there.
You look 10 years below,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 10 years above.
Mm-hmm. Because if it was built in 1975, I'm looking at 1965 up through 1985. I'm not looking at a 2017. You know what I'm saying? When I get up in the 2000s, that's not comparing to the 75 house. The features were different. They were built different.
Right.
Even though it may be a brick, it was still built different.
Now, is there specific, like, historic homes? Because there was one that I looked at, it was built in like 29,
Mm-hmm.
and the price was crazy. And it was, I know it was the area, but there were still newer homes. It was kind of a historic.
And it must have been the historic value of that. And see, that would be one that I'd be kind of scared of, kind of. You know what I mean? Unless there was a historic district. Do you know, like, if there could have been a historic district for you to been able to compare within? Was this Winston or
Winston.
West End? Do you recall around Glade Street? Do you remember what the street names were?
I do not recall that one, just because it was one of those I was playing with. And
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
I was like, this is. I
Yeah.
didn't find any homes that were still in that year.
Mhm.
Or even the range, but I think maybe I should have done 10 more.
If you still got it, go back out and see if you can pull anything up within that and use that 1.1 mile away, 3 mile, 5 miles, 6 miles, even, because historic homes like that, you say normally they're in a pocket together. They were all built about the same time. So hopefully you would be able to find something within at least a 3 mile range.
I was going through and I thought, wow, that is priced high for.
And this is an active listing, so it hasn't sold. Well, and see, if I couldn't have found anything out when I was trying to do a CMA on that one, see, that might be the kind that you recommend an appraiser look at. If it's truly standalone like that in a historic district and you haven't had anything sell in that district in the last year, which you might not have because people love those homes.
Do you have specific buyers that go to a location, or they'll say, I just want to buy a historic home?
Every now and then you will, but I've never run across any. But I do know there are historic districts in Winston-Salem, like around the West End, around that Glade Street area. That means you really know that you might have even grown up in that area. That would be the kind of person that probably would be most attracted to something like that. And no, me personally, I haven't dealt with one, but I'm telling you from just what you're telling me, if I couldn't find anything, that would be the kind of home I wouldn't be afraid to say, well, maybe we might need to have an appraiser look at. If I couldn't find anything around it, because to me, you sound like you got newer homes that it might have even been priced higher than some new homes.
It was. Yeah.
Was the square footage comparable?
Square footage comparable, yes, but that was the one that I couldn't quite home in on because it was built in 1929. Is there a location on, and I'm sure there is, the matrix where there is an appraisal available? I mean, can you?
No, you have to know an appraiser. You have to ask an appraiser to go out and take a look at that home for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the listing agent wouldn't necessarily.
Oh, if they had an appraisal, they might. If you went under the C agent remarks only,
Okay.
they might list if they had this by an appraisal, or sometimes they would put it in the remarks, recent appraisal completed, to give you an idea of why they priced it like they did. And some people specialize in historic homes. So see, then they have more of a mindset about how all that works. And from my perspective, I wouldn't necessarily. I'm used to dealing with the ones out here now, normally the brick and the, the newer homes. And not necessarily newer, but just not in historic districts. Right. And that probably is a whole different ball of wax. That's why I said if I ran up against one, that might be one that I wouldn't be necessarily afraid to say, well, maybe we need to.
Classic cars versus not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And either you work with classic cars or the muscle cars, and you don't. So that's a good way for you to relate to that. Yeah, if it's out of your realm, don't be afraid to say if you do not know something, people. Don't make it up. it's gonna come back and bite you. I guarantee it. You can be the most. Just be honest with your clients. If you're not sure, like you said, you're in a historic district. I really feel like that, we need to do some more research to hone in on your list price, because this is not something I normally do. Maybe we need to call in an appraiser, or let me talk to a few other agents, let me get some more feedback, especially after you've done a walkthrough, maybe, and see what kind of features the home says, because most of those historic homes, they have really done nicely. They have put in top of the line stuff in a lot of those homes that have, we're talking about Sub-Zeros and Viking appliances. It's amazing what people who love historic homes have put into them. So you just might need to say, I need to go back and do a little bit more research and come back with a price for you. Don't be afraid to say that. Even if I'd rather say that and lose the listing than make up something and not know what the heck I was talking about. Because guess what? You'll learn. Just like we said, you'll learn from that. Take them all as a learning experience. And hopefully they will appreciate the fact that you were honest with them enough that they'd be willing to work with you versus you, oh yeah, it's worth such and such. You don't know what the heck I'm talking about. And then somebody else comes along, another agent, maybe they got another appointment and they price it out the wazoo and they looking at yours and wondering where'd you come up with your number? It'd be better to say, let me go back and
say that the flip side of that. So I said I had a few listings I picked up right when I first got going, and the guy that wanted to sell, he's like, whatever you think. Like, he gave you complete carte
that was
blanche.
scary,
Like,
wasn't it? That was scary.
Yeah, he's like, I like to get this much. If you sell it for more, all the better. And I'm like, you get all this thing, you're like, wow, you have all this power and then all this, leeway, but it's overwhelming.
Yeah, when
you it's like, I want to make this number if maybe prices who makes that number and he looks back and says, well, I think I could have got more and he didn't try for that.
Well, and that's why this class is not what you probably thought it was going to be, but now you see why it is what it is. It's wanting you to make sure you feel good that when somebody gives you leeway, that you understand that you're okay when you do price it where you price it, that you say, okay, this is where we should, because everybody always second guess, well, what if I should have been higher? That's just human nature. You want as much as you can get, even if you couldn't have gotten any more, but they always like to second guess. What they say, hindsight's 20/20,
Right.
So.
When it's scary to me, an offer that's very close, you're like, did I shoot too low kind of thing, or if an offer's accepted right away, like, I just like, crap. All that thing, so.
Well, I would tell you what, I had a funny instance with the house that I think I told you about that went on that day. I got an offer that afternoon. It didn't go through, but it wasn't because of the home. The buyer backed out on the morning of the closing.
Wow.
And theoretically, my seller could have sued her, but we knew the house was good. We had so many showings that first day, and we'd only been on the market one day, or it was 0 according to realists because it was the same day. So we didn't feel bad about it. But guess what Vanessa did? They had gone through the whole process. So, and I knew this agent. You can't tell anybody I said this. But I asked him, I was like, can I get the appraisal? He gave me the appraisal. And I priced it differently. And when somebody saw it, they said, why don't you go up on the price? And I said, hindsight is 20/20. And the agent said, okay. And do you know I got it right back under contract?
Nice.
What was the difference?
Trying to remember now. 19, maybe 6,000. So we were okay because she didn't want to put any work into it. So obviously we were okay. I got it in 0 days. Right. But I turned right back around and still had it within that first week, even though I had increased the price.
Nice.
And they said, why'd you do that, Vanessa? I said, hindsight's 20/20. Because I knew what I knew. Yeah. It had been appraised now. That don't happen too often. But that's just a quirky thing that happened. So see, sometimes when you know, you can do better. But she was okay with what we got the first time. So it wasn't that we weren't happy, but I just knew more now, right?
You already had the insight to think to ask for that,
Oh,
I'll
honey.
probably just-
Guess what? I'm gonna tell you, it's not a secret because every closing I do, if I do not have the listing, after it's done, I go back and ask the buyer's agent if I can get a copy of the appraisal. Because I like to see what appraisals are doing. That's
Yep.
Guess what? It's more information for me for my CMA.
Strengthen your ability to do that.
Yeah.
Smart.
And guess what? I got a file folder of appraisals. Don't be afraid to ask. And this wasn't a Keller Williams agent.
Okay.
After the transaction is done, who
It's
cares?
free information.
It's free information. So do you mind if I get a copy? And I say, I like to collect them because I like to help reinforce my CMAs. Sure, Vanessa, here you go. Especially if you've been good, you've been working with them, you've had open communication. I wouldn't care if I passed on an appraisal to somebody at that point. The transaction's done. The amount that it's sold for is public information at that point. But that still doesn't tell me what the appraiser thought about it. I like to see sometimes what they compared it to. That helps you understand better of when you're looking at your comps. And I bet you nobody's ever told y'all to think like that, have they? And you'll love that feature. I mean, for you as a buyer's agent, that's a plus. Start making your file, maybe a 200,000 range or whatever, and start looking at what appraisals are doing. And you could probably come in here later and you could come up with a checklist of how they're making their subtractions. Better than I ever could, because you'd be seeing what's going on. So for your own personal life, use what we got, everybody. Especially if you got a buyer. But if you don't, and I mean, all the agent can say is no. But you tried.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, you find out more oftentimes than not. They say, "Oh, okay." Especially when you say, "I like to hold on to them because this is a way for me to help me get stronger with my CMAs." And it is, because you look at the houses that they chose, and sometimes you see, where the heck did they get that house from? I mean, I have seen them go out of subdivisions, go more than 5 miles away. And you're like, I mean, it came up to my good, so I'm not mad, but why? You know, when you had one, I know of appraisal that the appraiser went outside of a subdivision when he had a home right behind the one that he was checking, and he didn't pull it. That, to me, that's fighting grounds. That's fighting grounds for you to be able to say hello, especially if he doesn't appraise it to your good, if you got the buyer. In this instance, I think that's what happened. He came in low. Well, they had the seller, but he came in low or something, but he didn't even use the comp for the house right behind it, which had just sold.
Well, that's good for appraisal suggestions. If you see something.
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you what, they dig their heels in. They're just like crabs. Once they put that number out there, come hell or high water.
But at least you can, you know.
I'm telling you now, they're not going to change it. They're really not, unless they got to have somebody really, really, like the loan lender. The loan, you know, it's got to come from the loan company or something probably on their backs about it. Once you see it, y'all, make up, already know. And especially when you've got a seller and it comes in low for them, they'll say, well, what about this comp? They didn't use this one. They didn't use that one. Because oftentimes they'll show you when they come in low. You'll see the appraisal because they say, hey, they didn't do it. He's not going to change it.
I have an acquaintance of mine that's in appraisal school
Mm-hmm.
now, and he's saying as he's going through the school, the class, that they're coming in with like very strict,
Mm-hmm.
more information, kind of like we're always updated.
Mm-hmm.
The appraisals or the appraisers are getting, it's becoming more stringent, and they can't change, or they can't add a comma, or they can't. He said it gets really,
It can get really, really messy. So that's what I'm saying. Just be prepared when you've got that seller and that appraiser comes in low. Just go ahead and be upfront and tell them, you know, it may not be what our CMA showed or anything else, but unfortunately, the appraiser has the last word. So either you can sell it. If you decide not to sell it, if it's an FHA loan, it stays on the books for 6 months. Know that. If it's an FHA loan, that appraisal sticks for the next person that comes along to buy it for the next 6 months. If they're trying to do an FHA loan as well. Conventional, they pretty much don't care. But you can pay more if that's what they want to do. But it's on the books for an FHA loan for 6 months. So most of the time, you might as well go ahead and concede.
FHA, you can't pay more if it's FHA, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the appraiser says what you have to pay.
Well, the appraisal says what the value of what they feel the value of the property is worth, which is to your good if you have a buyer and it comes in lower, because most of the time the seller's just going to drop the price and sell it because that's what they want to do at that point. But if you've got a seller, you're not so happy. But if they had an FHA loan,
The conventional doesn't matter.
to my understanding, the conventional does not matter. Yeah.
What if the appraisal comes back higher than it's paid?
Well, I think in regards to conventional, I think, how do they handle it? Oh gosh, I had to think about it while y'all are working on this, because I want y'all to work on this, because I want Brandon to do this too. So let me think about that for the conventional side, because I'm trying to remember how they handle theirs. But so we talked about the recent listings, the property details, and you're going to print all that out from your MLS. And number 3 is going to be your conclusion or summary page. And if you turn over to page 22, it shows you what a recommended price for your home sheet can look like. That's in your guide to selling or your listing presentation as well. Oftentimes I pull that out and I have that to the side that I've written in that information for my knowledge. Oftentimes I'll write it on the top of my stack of my CMAs that I have for myself, the same information. But when you're doing a really neat one, some people like to see all this, so you can print that out and put that information in for one. Does that make sense? Okay, we're going to stop, take for a minute. We're going to go over